start with the announcements first, okay?
What's with the mirror?
Okay. Just a minute. Okay, so before we start, I have to say some announcements. We will be recording this session for those who can't make it or for you to rewatch this later. Recordings will be available for up to 30 days from when put up. We are pinning the video so that only the presenter will be recorded. This means you can choose to keep your video and audio on or off. If you speak, the recording will pick up your audio but not your name. You can type your questions in the chat box if you prefer. I'll be reading them out to Dr. Simon, and you can also private message me if you feel shy. Please keep your audio mute whenever you are not speaking, otherwise we might pick up your background noise. We encourage you to check out our Sugar and Spice Facebook group for latest updates and announcements. Next, for a very important announcement, consent. Please do not contact other participants outside of the festival without their consent. You can always ask them for permission through the festival or Facebook group before messaging them. We do not want instances of participants feeling violated or unsafe. This is very important for the Sugar and Spice festival, so please take note. For emotional support, you can email us at emotionalsupport@sugarandspice.asia. I'm going to paste the link here. Okay, so for today, we have Dr. Simon Neo. Dr. Simon has a Doctor of Psychology in Group Psychotherapy. He is a Certified Group Psychotherapist. His portfolio includes a private practice known as the Psychotherapy Clinic, both in Singapore and Bangkok. Simon loves life and embraces love. He thrives on humor and gravitates towards meaningful connections. So we will have Dr. Simon Neo next. I'll pass it over to you, Dr. Simon.
Thank you, Ewan. Well, I just want to welcome all of us. And if you are able to, I know this is about the power of vulnerability, and it is about connection. It is about just feeling each other and knowing, looking at each other and feeling comfortable with each other, or maybe a little uncomfortable or a little awkward with each other. Hi, Mata. What I want us to do is that if you can, just turn on the video so that we can connect. When we can connect, we can feel that vulnerability part and see how, if ever, that can turn into a power. And that was scary, Mata. So if you're able to, I see Elmer and I also see a love. If you're able to, can you just turn on your video so that I can connect with all of us here? Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I have some PowerPoint slides, and just a while ago, I decided not to use them, but I'm going to show you anyway so that you know what I'm talking about. And I really hope that this is going to be a time whereby we can discuss a little bit more. We can share our experiences. We can talk about what makes sense, what didn't make sense, what didn't make sense. We can talk about what's really important for us. All right, so I'm going to share this PowerPoint slides with you. Just going to go through them. I think they're only 20 over slides. And then I'm going to just come back to the screen again whereby I can see all of you. All right, here it goes. Oops. Share. Okay, so just nod your head if you can see. It's full screen, right? Okay, that's the power of vulnerability. I'm just going to go through with them and then stop the share, and then we're going to talk about it. All right. It says, I want to connect with you. I do want to connect with you. And that's in really, really small fonts below, because I'm afraid. I don't know if you want to connect with me as well. I don't know what it means for you when I say that I want to connect with you. I wonder how is it like? I know in Chicago it's cold, and you've got a fireplace behind you. It feels warm for me because I can see the fireplace, which means my fantasy is that it's very warm. So Christy, you are warm, right? Let's go on and see. Okay, Brene Brown, we all know when we talk about vulnerability, she always appears. Right? So she's a guru. She talks about vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. Truth and courage aren't always comfortable, but they are never weakness. We're going to talk a little bit about this. but I just want to go through the slides again, just quickly. What does vulnerability means to you? And I hope to be able to share with you. And then what does it mean to me? How do you equate vulnerability? There you go. This is how we equate shame, weakness, hidden, putting on the front, naked, pain, humiliation, flaws, disgrace. And this is where we find ourselves not willing or not able to connect, not willing to be vulnerable. And I'm going to talk about vulnerability, which is actually the key to meaningful connections. We all want to be connected, don't we? We all want to be heard. We all want to be seen. We all want to know that, okay, my voice makes a difference. But what does it take for us then to be able to overcome this big word, vulnerability? These are some things we're going to share. Self-awareness. We're going to learn to be ourselves. Curious. Revelation. What does it mean, revelations? Taking some risks. Inevitable. In the here and now, which I hope you are in the here and now. Meaning to say that, you are looking at me, I'm looking at you. We are feeling what is it like to be in this group together. And I know that you are still pretty silent and quiet. I've got no idea what's on your mind, but that's okay. Stay in the here and now with me. Own our feelings. How do I feel right now? Quite excited though, a little anxious, but quite excited. Claiming our strengths. Very often, depending on where you come from, in this part of the world whereby it's collectivistic culture, people don't own their strengths. When we say, oh, you look nice today, and they say they attribute to something else and somewhere else, or they just deflect, or we just deflect, and say, we just totally negate and ignore the efforts we put in. We're going to talk a bit about that. Empathy. Everyone talks about empathy, but what does it really mean to have empathy? Being imperfect, it's actually perfect. So we don't strive to live up to the expectation of other people. Be kind to who? Be kind to what? The daring to connect as well. And that's why in a few moments time, I decided not to put on the slides so that you and I can see face to face and connect. I think that's really important. I want you to experience the power of connection, the power of vulnerability, the power of being able to stay focused with each and every one of us. Articulating our needs. A lot of times we are, wherever we come from, most of us are passive aggressive. We hope that things will happen. We really pray hard that things will happen. If it doesn't happen, we are disappointed. And then, you know what? We tell ourselves it's okay. We tell ourselves it doesn't matter. But yet deep down inside, we desire, we yearn for certain things. It's a collaboration. We share a little bit about it. We need acceptance to be able to move towards vulnerability, to be able to experience the power of vulnerability, to be able to feel connected. And then it's one small step. We don't have to think big. So what is one small step right now? One small step right now is just being focused here, connecting with me as I connect with you, and then to feel the air, to breathe the air, and to see what is it like, really without distraction, being genuinely interested in the moment. And I'll share a little bit about process group, something that you and I can work towards wherever you are, whatever country you come from. This process group is going to help us in our personal growth, in really learning to be vulnerable, and then finding what's in it for us when we begin to want to be vulnerable. Along the way, there will be Q&A, and this is where anyone will come in, or if there's anyone who types in the chat, sure, just alert me, just anytime, stop me, and then we can just go on from there. And then I'll say thank you and adios. All right, let me stop the share right now. Some chat coming in. Okay, just give me a sec. Let me get this in order. Oops. Okay. Great. go to the first one. Now, I really want to engage you. I'm really interested to know what's going on in your mind right now. So if you can just share a little bit, because by sharing, I know that you're interested, at least for now. I know that you do have a desire to want to connect as well, because this is about the power of vulnerability. So you're thinking, right, what do I do right now? Well, you can unmute yourself. You can share a little bit. And your only your voice will be recorded. You don't have to say who you are. Hi, Christy.
Hello. I'm not sure what to share. I guess I'm interested. I'm very interested in the topic of vulnerability. I was talking with someone earlier and saying that I had the false idea that being a transparent person meant that I was a vulnerable person, and then I realized some years ago that wasn't really the case, that I shared a lot about stuff, but that I wasn't open to being intimate with people about my feelings necessarily, or like opening myself up to a space where I could potentially get hurt by others. And so yeah, so I'm just interested about what would be helpful and how I can be better at being both, like still being transparent, but gaining more of that vulnerability.
I appreciate that, Christy. Appreciate you being vulnerable and opening up and just to share about what's on your mind. I think that's wonderful. Being vulnerable comes with expectation. It comes with the possibility of getting hurt, H-U-R-T. And a lot of times hurt people. People who are hurt go on hurting people without realizing it. So it is a big risk to be vulnerable. It is a big, huge risk to want to be able to share people, to talk to people about our life, what's going on in there, and then to be able to feel that meaningful connection with people. To know that, as I begin to open up and to talk about what's in me, and there are times whereby I may not know what's happening in me as well, but I'll just let you know that I'm afraid, I'm frightened, and yet there's a connection. So vulnerability talks about a connection, and not just a connection, but a meaningful connection. And this is where I talk about, in my second slides, you'll see that I want to connect with each and every one of you. I do. Whether it's you and whether it's Elmer, whether it's Martha or whoever it may be, I just want to connect with you because this is our time, this is our space. Even though, you're helping out or you're a technical guy, it doesn't matter. What matters is that there's 6 of us in here, in this room. And we're going to find some meaningful connection because we don't know each other that much, that well. But we're going to see how is it like to be connected? How is it like to be, well, somewhat vulnerable? So I really appreciate that, Christy. As we go along, we're going to see what comes out of it. And I'm just going to be cognizant of the timing so that I don't talk too much and then, overrun. So here's what it means, right? What does vulnerability mean to you? I know I asked the questions. I got to share a little bit first. Vulnerability means to me, really, a lot of things that I'm really afraid of. A part of me was asking myself, this is going to be recorded. I don't know who is this going out to. A lot of people might see it. And then I asked myself, where do I want this to be done? Do I want it to be done in my clinic where it's prim, proper, professional with my diplomas behind me? Or do I want to do it at home? I thought about it. The most ideal place to do this Zoom would be at my clinic. But then I'm talking about vulnerability. I want to begin to be able to feel vulnerable so that I can talk to you about vulnerability, so that I can share with you about vulnerability. So I decided to do this do this at my home. This is my house, this is my home. While you can see what's behind, it's very intimate when you share with somebody beyond, above and beyond what you like to share. Zoom itself becomes a very intimate, and who's that showing the lip? So if you look behind me, that's my house, that's my home. I do feel a little exposed. I do somehow, you may not feel it, you may not know it, but I do feel a little exposed, right? So this is what vulnerability means to me. It means that I would want to put up a front. I would like to see you. I'd like you to see me as Dr. Simon Neo, Psychotherapist Singapore, who has a clinic in Bangkok as well, and my credentials and everything else. I don't want you to see that vulnerable side of me. What is the vulnerable side of me? The side that says I'm frightened, the side that says that, okay, if I talk, no one talks, does it mean they don't like me? So I want to hear from you guys. What does vulnerability means to you? Okay, Martha is signaling to Ewan to share. Or Martha wants to share. Whichever comes first, that's fine. Go ahead, guys.
No, I'm not asking Ewan to share. She's being vulnerable eating now. I wanted to share something which I've noticed. Nowadays, a lot of coaches, or maybe for the last few years, a lot of coaches actually try to use their personal story as a marketing strategy. And I don't know how ethical it is. So that's one question to a fellow colleague. And also, I'm really not sure how authentic it is, because you are actually just kind of trying to get pity, attention, even playing victim. So yeah, the ethics around it. And I think there's a different school of thought where I think there are people who are also arguing that we shouldn't do that, and we don't need to do these things to get clients. So I'm very interested because there's this intersection with being vulnerable. Yeah, so I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I think that's a really good point, Dr. Martha, whereby coaches, like you say, they use their personal story, they gravitate towards being a big team. So the attention is being focused on them. Yeah, as a marketing tool, and whether that crosses the ethical boundaries, right? That's really true. I mean, what do you mention, that people who does that kind of thing, and a part of it is also true in the sense that they want to be able to share what they've been through. They want to be able to share what's in it so that people can see them as they are and feel comfortable. So in part, when people share about their personal story, what happens over here is that we get a reaction. We get a reaction, and then we begin to imagine, we begin to fantasize and say, oh, this is not real, don't be the victim. So there are two parts of it. One of it is when someone shares their story, there's a reaction from someone else, and they immediately shut off and say, no, this is not what I want to hear. You're not being authentic, you're not being real, you're just getting sympathy. The other part of it may be someone really, really wants to share their story, what they've been through. So how do we deal with that? Whether it's real, whether it's a victim, or no, whether it's getting sympathy or not. I think what's really important is that in this time that we have right now, in the next 40 minutes, that we focus on us as a group. We focus on us, and then to see what's in it for us. And then at the end of it, we make another informed choice or conclusion and say, well, has this been worth it? So let's see how it goes from there. I think you brought up a really good point, and it causes a reaction in you. And I like that. And please continue to engage me. Things that you feel that, it doesn't make sense, you didn't agree with it, please engage me. So coming back, what does vulnerability means to you?
Asking me?
Oh, you're talking about Ewan, right?
No, I'm talking about me. You asked me to share what is vulnerability to me. Okay, I share. So vulnerability to me means sharing about things that I'm a little bit scared of to share. And that is not being vulnerable if I have shared it many, many, many times and it doesn't evoke something in me. I feel, to me, when I share something many, many, many times and it doesn't evoke something in me, it's not really being vulnerable. It's more like I'm just being a tape recorder. Yeah. So I feel to relate with someone, I really need to ground myself, be present, and allow those feelings of whatever it is that I'm sharing to come up. Okay, thank you very much. So I know Elma wanted to go next.
So in my view, I see as we use an example, but all of us work knowing what a colleague want and knowing what you want might not be the same. And in between, it might be because of the vulnerability of knowing what each other really want in terms of working together. So having the invisible mask that's being put on by speaking to someone where we call it colleague or rather friends, it brings the knowledge or it brings the expectation to different direction as compared to knowing and speaking to a friend. So I think this is one of the day-to-day issue that, you know, especially right now, we are all doing it virtual rather than needing to see each other face to face, because camera is there. Looking at each other, eye contact is something that we do face to face, but it might not be needed or important when we talk about behind having this virtual session itself. So from my point of view would be that would be one of the day-to-day biggest vulnerability issue that at least for me I would see as, should I be knowing you as a colleague, or am I able to know what you really mean and what you tell me is not what you mean? So I think this is just something for me to bring up for the discussion.
Thank you, Alma. I think Alma brought up something which is very real in all of us, in the sense that, you know, when we begin to share, it's a question of how much do I want you in my life? How much do I give you the speaking rights into my life? If you're a colleague, you'll be an arm's length. If you're someone else, you can go a little bit into my personal space. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it will also be that, you know, if I were to give you access into the personal space, the question is, what's my expectations? If I tell you something, if I feel that, you know, you're not validating me, you judge me, I close up immediately. Historically, we learn through hurt, being hurt. People hurt us. We tell them something, you know, we may be very upfront, and when we meet someone else, we give them everything else. And we don't get what we want in return. We get really disappointed. So we tell ourselves in our mind, I'm going to be more careful. I'm not going to be cheated again. So what does it mean? We build walls in front of us. When we do that, we may not experience a meaningful connections. Well, what Elma said is true, that, you know, if you're just a colleague, it's just work. Maybe just a little bit more, but nothing else. If you're my spouse, if you're my partner, now that's the questions. The irony of it is that sometimes with a lot of us, with our partner, we don't even share as much because we don't show them our vulnerability. We don't tell them our needs. It's disguised as, you know, you should know me by now. And it turns into passive aggressive behavior. We act out, hoping that they will guess what's on our mind. We slam the door. We put a little more salt in the rice that we cook. For Chinese, you know, we cook rice. We put a little more salt in there, and then, you know, we just want a reaction from people. And most of the time, we don't get nothing from anyone else. So how do we even begin to navigate into a meaningful connection with people? Now, if there's no connection, there's no vulnerability, right? There's no need to. You watch a movie, you see something that really touches you, you tear, you cry, don't you? Now think about it, why is it so? There's no connection. You don't care about, the movie. It's just for your own enjoyment. What is it that makes you connect with the movie? The emotions, the need to want to have a sense of belonging, the need to be affirmed, the need to want to have a meaningful connection that's being projected onto the movie. That's why we tear. That's why we cry. So at this point in time, we all know that we all want a meaningful connection with people. In order to do that, we want to learn how to do that. Part of it, not all, but a part of it is learning to be vulnerable, because self-disclosure brings people closer together. But to what kind of self-disclosure? It's a risk that you and I would have to navigate, we have to take, would have to go to trials and error. I don't open up the first minute by telling all about my life. You'd be frightened off, definitely. So sometimes vulnerability chases people away as well when they're not ready, when they're not in the season, or when they don't want to connect with us just as much. It takes time to build a meaningful connection. As I share right now, I'm looking at each one of you intensely, including the little heart in the middle of the screen. I wonder what is it, but it's still a little heart. I hope it grows by the end of the hour. All right. So the next question really is, how do we equate vulnerability? What do you mean by that? I'll tell you, and you saw the slides, vulnerability to me is shame. If I show you who I am deep down inside, if I tell you a little about my past, that shame begins to surface in me. And you'd be thinking, who is this Dr. Simon, who is a psychotherapist and he's been through, he can't even heal himself. He's still going through hurt. That's the lie that I tell myself. That's the lie that the world wants me to see and to feel. So in part, vulnerability to me is shame. I remember when I was doing my master degree, and there was a topic called DTIC, Developmental Teams in Counseling. When I began to write my life story, my script, and I realized it was shame. Shame was so evident, so powerful in my life. How does it come out? It comes out of me trying to put on the front. It comes out of me trying to mask my pain. It comes out of me trying not to show people the real me. And many of us are like that. While granted, we need to put on a front, sure. We cannot be going around naked emotionally because it scares people off. It's not meaningful connection. You know what, the irony of it, I got a HT, high distinction for my paper, and it's about my shame. How ironic, right? My shame got to me a high distinction. But then it really makes me realize that, hey, I cannot be hiding behind the shame. So how do you equate vulnerability? If you were to put a word to it, or a sentence to it, a meaning or feeling to it, how would you say, what is your vulnerability? Good or bad? Would you like to share? Silence means you're thinking really hard. We have time. How do you equate your vulnerability?
My view will be, if I were to see the words vulnerability, then I will just use one word to represent that, and that would be truth.
Truth, okay.
So whether you want someone to know the truth or whether you want to hide the truth is up to the individual. But knowing the truth, would it be helpful or would it be worse? Actually, would it turn out worse for the individual itself? So yeah, that's my view lah.
Thank you, Alma. I really like that. It's to the point. Vulnerability is about the truth. The question is, what's the truth? Do you want to tell people everything about the truth? And what's in it for you? Again, being vulnerable has a price. Let me ask you, what do you want when you want to have a meaningful connection with people? When you start telling people about what's going on in your life, what do you really hope to achieve? Yes, this is a radio station, right? WIFM. What's in it for me? Brilliant. What's in it for you when you start to Now, let me ask you this. In here, the 6 of us, or 5.5, when you begin to share, what are you hoping to bring into the group? Do you do it because you're pressurized? Or do you do it because you want to be a part, you really want to learn about vulnerability? So Alma has said vulnerability equates the truth. That's very true. Just one more. What about the rest of you? What does vulnerability equates to you? I told you it equates shame to me. It's humiliation, it's flaws, it's disgrace, it's naked, it's pain to me. Or at least it was, maybe still a little bit of it. How do you equate vulnerability? Give it a shot, Ewan. I know your words are beginning to form, although you're chewing.
Yeah, sorry. I was wondering if I should eat earlier, but then I thought like this workshop's about vulnerability, so I was showing you my physical needs. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Vulnerability also means shame to me. It's the shame of not being able to solve your own problems, and the shame of showing people that you're not capable because somehow you need help, because you can't resolve the issue on your own. Yeah.
And it's very true for all of us as well. It's so easy for us in the relationships, the friendship. Sometimes, we are eager to extend help. And many of us, it's very difficult for us to receive help. We don't know how to receive help in the sense that we don't know how to tell people our needs. If we don't tell people what we need, if we don't tell people our needs, nobody will know. As much as they want to love us, they will just keep guessing. So we got to find a way to tell them our needs. And that means being vulnerable and say, hey, being with you, this is what I need from you. I need you to, I may need that physical needs, that hug. I may need to emotionally to feel that, this time spent with you equals something. Any thoughts, Christy, so far?
Some, but I'm not entirely certain. Like, I was thinking about how, like, I grew up in a very shame-based kind of situation. So it's easy to say that vulnerability is shame, but really it wasn't for me so much, because I think that it was more like rejection or not having my needs met, because I would say what I needed and then that wouldn't be met. And so I would say, this is what's happening. And then people would say, no, it's not. Or I would say, this is important. And people would say, no, it's not. So I think like the rejection of what I needed or not having those needs met was more like the vulnerable piece, like saying I need this and have someone be like, screw you.
Okay. Thank you, Christy, for sharing. And I remember in the beginning, you talk about, you being upfront, you being sharing with people, and exactly, what you're talking about, right? That you don't get your needs met. Because when you tell people what you need and they just screw you, tell people what you need and they say, no, that's not important, which means, you are invalidated. And the feeling is that, I'm not important. I'm going to tell you what I need and I still don't get what I need. I'm not important enough. And that puts us, we recline back, we feel so small, we become so small. And that has its roots in shame as well, whereby I feel that, I'm going to be very, very cautious. I'm going to just look at the signs and see whether you are someone who is able to make me feel safe enough for me to tell you about my needs again. We're going to explore that. But thank you for sharing. So part of it, really, vulnerability, it's really the key to meaningful connections. And again, that's what we need. We all want connection. So part of meaningful connection is really about self-awareness, being aware of ourselves. Are you aware of how you feel? Are you aware of how you react? Are you aware of certain triggers in you? Are you aware that when someone gives you feedback, that sometimes in our mind, immediately we turn into a victim and say, no, this cannot be true. This is not me. I reject that. You know, you're not understanding me. And I feel so hurt. Now, self-awareness. If I asked you just to think for a moment right now, what's going in your mind? What's going through your mind right now? How do you feel right now? Being aware of it. Some of you may say, you know, I'm just anticipating what to come next. Some of you may say, I'm bored. You know, we got another 25 minutes to go. Some of you may feel, okay, you know, I'm hungry. Being aware of yourself, being aware of what's going on around you. You first, and then other people. You first. Having self-awareness. How do you cultivate self-awareness? One of it is to invite feedback. It's ask people, you know, people that you trust, of course. You remember, hurt people, H-U-R-T. You ask people that has been hurt, they're going to tell you things that's been hurt. They don't celebrate, they don't rejoice with you. So one of it is ask feedback from people, you know, what's your experience with me? Having known me for so long, what's your experience with me? Can you give me some honest feedback? We're not necessarily asking for positive feedback. We're talking about honest feedback. Being self-aware. That's only one aspect of it, asking for honest feedback from people. And then take it and reflect. Being able to reflect, being able to process self-awareness. So how much self-awareness do you have? Are you aware of yourself, how you stand when you take the public transport? Are you aware of yourself when you're in a group? How do you behave? How do you not behave? How do you run away from groups? Are you aware of yourself when pain hits you? When someone says something that's really hurtful for you, you laugh, you giggle, you deflect. You're not telling people it hurts. You're just telling people, you know, continue to hurt me because it's not important. You hurt me and I'll laugh about it. Are you aware of the way you react or you respond? Think about it, self-awareness. And I need to go on. And then second part of it is to be yourself. Be authentic. How easy it is to say to be yourself. And I like when, you know, when you say that you're attending to your physical needs. I'm going to suggest to you it's more than that. It's emotional needs. Because the physical needs will meet the emotional aspect of it as well. So you are attending to every senses, all your needs. And I like you just being yourself. I like the way you respond to me as well. You just smile and I feel accepted by that. You're smiling at me. I like the way where Alma, you know, once in a while will look up, paying attention to me. I like the way Christy, you know, whereby you seem so focused. And I just somehow, you know, with the backdrop, I feel warm, like I say. Martha once in a while will show that funny face. She is. I wish I can see Eric. I wish I can see the small little heart that I think is growing. And, you know, if I were to ask you, if you can be yourself in any situation, what would you be? If you can be yourself, what would you want to be? Okay, you want to be silenced? That's being yourself too. How else do you want to be, Ewan?
Sometimes I really feel like throwing a tantrum, but I don't. But if at that moment I really had to be myself, I would like really want to throw a tantrum, maybe stomp my feet and like yell at someone, but I just try to hold back because I'm an adult. Yeah.
You know, just by talking about it is liberating. Whether you get to do it or not, just by talking about, just by owning it and say, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to live the life that I want. Sometimes I want to go back to being a baby. Sometimes I want to go back to being a sweetheart, a little girl. And I want to be able to do that because society restricts us and it comes in the form that as I'm an adult, so I'm expected to behave. There's certain decorum. We live up to the expectation of other people. So just by allowing ourselves to feel, to talk about it, it is liberating. It's by itself. to stomp your feet, to throw tantrum. Someday, perhaps, you might be able to. But thank you for sharing. Anyone else want to talk about it? If you can be just yourself.
Yeah, I don't have enough fun. Like play fun. Like I'm funny and I joke around a lot, but like like my daughter and we made a gingerbread house like last week. And I don't know why we made it's not Christmas time, but we decorated a gingerbread house while drinking cocktails, and I was like, why don't we play like this, like children anymore? And she was like, because we're not children. And I was like, but yes we are. Like, we're not fundamentally altered because we grew up, like, and we should play. So I just realized I need to do more fun play in my life. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I like it so much. Who needs Christmas to build a gingerbread house, whatever you call it, right? And you know, there's always a little child in us. No matter who we are, how old we are, what position we hold, our true identity, there's always a little child in us that wants to come out and play. So if given the opportunity, just be ourselves. I wish I can share with you a lot more story, but I'm cognizant of the time, right? Now it's like 2:12, but just a quick one, right? I was giving a talk one time many years ago, and we're talking about, you know, allowing your child, I was talking to parents, allowing your child to be themselves. And I ask the parents, you know, what is it like allowing the child to be themselves? So parents are very cautious and say, no, you know, you allow them to be themselves. They don't know what's good for them. I need to protect them. I need to make sure they are safe. I need to tell them, don't spend too much time on the computer. And I kind of like think, yeah, that's true. It makes sense, but a lot of it is just serving your own needs as parents. So one parent stood up and said, you know, and she said that this was the end of the exam, and I asked my daughter what she wants to do. And my daughter looked outside and it was raining, and she said, I want to go and play. So to any parents in Singapore and this part of the world, it's like, no, you're going to get sick going out to play. For sure, we are so protective. This mom thought for a little while and say, you know, I'm not going to set myself for failure. I'm not going to set my daughter up for failure. If I ask her, I'm going to try my best to fulfill it. So she did. She allowed the daughter to go out in the rain to play. And guess what? She went out and played with the daughter as well. And I asked her what happens after that. And to her, it's like, you know, she said, you know, I feel so good. You know, I feel so empowered because my daughter tells me that this is the best time of her life. And it means to the mother too. So I'm going to challenge you if you can be yourself. It's really hard to live up to the expectation of other people. People need to see us as who we are. People need to see us when we are sad, when we're happy. I'm not asking us to run amok. I'm asking you to realize our needs and to know that there's a little child inside of us. I don't want always to be an adult. I can still have fun of an adult, but if I want to do certain things, then I'll do it. If you do it, share with me your testimony. And I need to go on. And next in my slides is curiosity kills the cat. Be curious about things. Be curious about your interaction with people. Think beyond that. You know, what is it like if I were to, what is it like to be in Chicago right now? You know, I love the cold, I love the snow. And that's why the fireplace attracts me so much. I'm into you, Christy. I want to be there if I could. I just want to be near you and feel the warmth. And I know that looks like San Francisco, right, Alma, where you are? Is that the Bay Bridge? Yeah. So be curious, allow your fantasy to run when you interact with people. Think about it, you know, what is it that caused them to feel this way, to say this way? Because everyone has a past. Every saint has a past. And every cook has a future. Think about it. Every saint has a past and every cook has a future. If you think you're a saint right now, you've had a past. If I look at myself, I'm a crook. Hey, you know, guess what? I have a future. Be curious about people. When you're curious, you and I will be less judgmental. You know, the good thing about it is that when you have a meaningful connection with people, a lot of times you want to change people. And I say, don't change anyone, because it's not about changing, it's about influencing. It's about values that are caught, not taught. We can't tell people to do things our way, but we can influence them. And that's where they catch on to the values. When you start doing that, it's beautiful because values are caught, they are not taught. And then there's revelation. I talk about it whereby, self-disclosure brings people closer together. It's one small step at a time. Don't open up everything and say, here's my life. We're going to scare people off. One small step, revelation. Telling people a little bit about us, about our fear, about our concern, about our needs, about our wants. And then there's taking risks. Risk is not just risk itself. Risk is risk. Risk comes with rejection. And Christy, you talk about it, right? Being rejected by people. You talk about it, all of us get it. We get rejected by people. Sometimes the things that people don't say that makes us feel rejected. It may not be what they say, it's what they don't say. In either way, we still get rejected. And I asked you to take some risks with people. And when you take some risks with people, which means to say that more or less, we're a little more prepared to be rejected. We're a little more prepared and say that, hey, dude, you know what? I'm going to tell you this. I'm just going to be myself. If you accept me, that's great. We can have a deeper connection. If you can't, then we'll see how it goes. I'm still curious about you, but it doesn't mean that everything is going to work out fine in every and any connection. Take some risks with people. Sometimes tell them that you don't like things that are being said. We don't do it enough. That's why people don't understand us enough. Take some risks. And what's really important, it's also be the here and now, the moment by moment. Think about it. We started off, I was here like 15 minutes earlier. Until now, it's an hour on my clock. We've got another 15 minutes, almost 15 minutes more to go. How has it been for you so far? Do you feel that you are a little more connected, just a little bit more connected? I don't know whether you can see me, Eric, and that little center heart. If you can just hear and feel my voice, I asked you, what's your fantasy of me? What's the fantasy of this group? Be in the here and now. It is this moment of connection that's going to make a difference. So when you're with someone, the things that you do as well, and people talk about mindfulness, I get it, but here and now means the present moment. What is important for the present moment is for us to connect, because this is about vulnerability. What is important for the present moment in the here and now with whoever you're with is to just feel them, see them, be yourself, take some risks, be curious about it. And this is where you find that the things that you do, that you have been doing, hasn't been quite worthwhile, but it's beginning to be a little more worthwhile. Because there's a power influence. The values that they are being caught and not taught. And then we talk about owning our own feelings. And that is really difficult, to own our feelings. Our natural reaction is to laugh, is to giggle, is to pretend nothing happened. I was in a session with family yesterday, and everyone in the family was hurt, H-U-R-T. And when I talk about certain violence that happens in a family, one member of the family laughed about it. It was incongruent, which means that, it's pain avoiding. I want to avoid that pain. So when we talk about violence in the family, physical violence, that family members chose to laugh about it. And I would have said that, we were talking about something that is painful right now. We're talking about something that shouldn't happen in the family. And this violence, this physical violence makes you laugh about it. I wonder, what are you hiding away? I wonder, what are you running away from? We run away from pain. Because owning our feelings means that, I don't want to touch my own triggers, my own pain. But sometimes we got to be there to know that this is what I'm going through, to own it. When I own it, other people can share it as well. People can share my pain, my misery, sometimes my bitterness. So allow some people a little preview into your life, those that you feel that, can speak into your life. Let them see your pain so that they can understand you, so that they can also show themselves their pain and have a more meaningful connection. That's vulnerability. Again, it comes with risk. We may not necessarily get what we want, but as we go along, we get better with it, being vulnerable. And then claim your strength. All right. What strengths do you have, dude? I feel I'm very warm. I claim it as my strength. See, I like it when you smile with me. I like to believe that you agree with that.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you. And people say, don't be too proud because Chinese believe the head will grow big and will explode. That's BS, right? That's BS. When I talk to Americans, I love it because they just there's so much in them that I can pick from them. They just claim their strength. They just speak their mind. They just be who they want to be. I just don't understand it. I feel so sad. Well, being in this part of the world. So what's your strength? Come on, share with me a little bit. I only have 10 minutes to go. I want to hear some of your strength. Anyone?
I'm really smart.
I agree. I do. Honestly, because you do look smart, really. I like that, Christy. Thank you for sharing your strength. I wish you can go on. I mean, I can go on about strength, but what I really want us to do is to own our strength, own our feeling, know our strength. When someone gives us a compliment, please take it. Receive it. Don't like, you're just joking. No lah. We like to say that kind of stuff. Own it when someone gives you a strength, because if you cannot take a compliment, you cannot give a compliment. It's not going to be real for you. If you can learn to take a compliment, you can learn to give a compliment. What does it forces you to do? Well, forces is not a good word to say, but it brings you on a deeper level of learning to catch the good in people. By virtue of the fact we like to catch people doing the wrong thing. We do that. We pick on people. But hey, guess what? We can learn to catch people do the right thing. So you see the entire vicious cycle. When someone gives you a compliment, take it. When you take it, you can give a compliment. When you give a compliment, the life script begins to change. You learn to see the good in people. You accept people as who they are. All right, empathy. Learning to see other people. Seeing people in their shoe. You don't have to feel sorry for them. You just can imagine being in their shoe. And some days people are not up to it to connect with us. And we want to give them permission too. When we're vulnerable, when we take risks, when we tell them certain things, they ask us going to fly kite. Sometimes we empathize with them because they're just not up to it. We want to give them the grace and permission to do that. That's empathy. That's what we want to do. All right. Perfect imperfection. Dude, you and I don't have to be perfect. If I were to ask you, what is one thing you want to change about yourself physically? There'd be tons of things. I want to be taller. I want to be slimmer. I want to be, having really symmetrical, my face to be really symmetrical. Not just the physical aspect of it, a lot of things that we want. Do you accept ourselves as who we are? I know you heard this before. It's really, really, really difficult to really accept ourselves. To accept ourselves, we need to look beyond the physical aspect, the emotional aspect. We need to come to a posture that we are imperfect. And I say this again, every sin has a past and every crook has a future. Wherever you are right now, you had a past, you have a future. Accept that I'm imperfect. And that's where I get feedback from people. Because genuine feedback brings me closer to people, makes me connected with them. Be kind. We all know that. I'm not talking about being kind to animals, that's important. But do be kind to yourself. Are you being kind to yourself? Are you doing yourself a favor by being kind to yourself? If you're going to eat a tub of ice cream, my suggestion is don't feel guilty about it. If you're going to feel guilty, please don't eat. Don't bring yourself to the level of conflict. If you're going to eat it, don't feel guilty. Enjoy it. Okay, I enjoyed a tub of ice cream. I'm going to be fed. Yeah, I know. That's a consequence of it. I live with it. So sometimes the internal conflict that's within us is really hard to get rid of. So do yourself a favor, be kind to yourself. Do the things you want to do. Do not have to always live up to people's expectations. It's really, 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 really difficult. Now, that's not to say we don't have obligations and responsibilities. We do have. We do have obligations and responsibilities that we need to fulfill in life. I'm asking you to be kind to yourself. You want a break? Just take a break. The world will still go on. And sometimes I know it's really difficult when we have children, we have to cater to their needs. Dude, if they suffer an hour, they won't die. I know it's cruel to say that, but learn to be kind to yourself. Dare to connect. We always wait for people to make the first move and see, how people will respond to us. And then we decide whether it's a worthwhile connection. I asked you to make the first move. I asked you to go to someone and say, hey, I want to connect with you. I asked you to go to someone and say, I really like the way you talk. I really like the way you smile. I really like the way that, handle the situation. And I want to connect with you. I may get rejected. People may look at me like, dude, what's happening? At least I dare to connect. Of course, it comes with rejection. But think about it. The next time you want a connection with someone else, go for it. Don't wait for things to happen because it might not happen. Which goes with our next slide, articulate your needs. If you want it, you have to ask for it. If you ask for it, you may face being rejected. Debrief, process through. I feel rejected when asked about certain thing. And then the channels of communication may be open. Someone may say, but I'm not ready, dude. I'm not ready to give you what you want. There is better understanding. Articulating our needs also means we will be learning to be assertive. If you don't like it, tell that someone else. If you like it, tell that someone else too. Especially for Asians, we hardly ever articulate our needs. We pretend everything is okay. Our first response when someone else says everything okay, it's like, it's okay, but dude, I'm hurting inside. And then we continue to be hurt inside, H-U-R-T. It grows into bitterness. And remember, in any connection with anyone, it's always collaboration. It is not a competition. I don't have to prove to you how much I know. Because you know what? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It's a collaboration. It is not a competition. It is not a tit for tat. It is not because you hurt me, H-U-R-T, I'll hurt you, and then you know how it feels. It's a collaboration. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It is acceptance, more acceptance of ourselves first. You can't accept yourself, it's going to be hard to accept other people as who they are. Can you accept yourself as who you are right now? Whatever you're going through, mentally, physically, emotionally, can you accept yourself? Acceptance doesn't mean it doesn't change anything. You can still accept yourself this moment and decide, okay, I want changes. That's why when you eat a tub of ice cream, accept that you've eaten it. Don't beat yourself up because you're setting yourself up for failure. And then decide after you're enough of enjoying the ice cream and say, okay, here's what I want to do. It's internal conflict that confuses us a lot of times. I'm coming to the end and I'm going to tell you one step at a time, one small step, whatever that makes sense to you right now. Take one small step. You don't have to take a big step. One small step. What do you want to do? Be yourself, be courageous, dare to connect, learn to be vulnerable, be kind to yourself, whatever, just take one small step. All right, I've come to the end. I'm going to show you this slide about process group. Can I just take 2 more minutes, Ewan? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Let me show you this. This is called process group that I run. and it's available worldwide as well. It is, if you Google process group, you will see I run process group, and this process group, I do in such a way that people come for a weekend, Saturday, Sunday, they stay from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., right? And it's very unstructured. All that I talk about being yourself, daring to connect and taking risks and all that, it's all in the process group. People connect with one another the way they want it to be, in a safe environment, as me being a facilitator. Now, if you're in Chicago, I know they run process group itself. You know, somewhere, some other part of the world, I know they run process group. But this is what I do. At the end of it, there's a lot of personal growth, self-awareness. You're able to learn to relate to people. You get feedback. It's self-care for you. You know, it gets to know your thought patterns and behavior. Now, for those of us who are in Singapore, this is what I can do for you. If you're interested, you contact me. I can offer you this process group for you to experience it. Get in touch. I'll give you more information about it, right? Or you can just find about my contact. Okay, gonna go back again. And any questions so far? Or at least talk about how this has been for you. If you can share a little bit about how this has been for you. Good, bad, ugly, neutral, whatever. I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, if you are shy, you can text me the questions privately, and I'll read them out without revealing who you are.
How has this session been for you? Would you like to share a little bit?
For me, it's quite meaningful, quite refreshing, and a good reminder. Constantly, it's nice to have having two-way kind of feedback, and also having the two-way kind of discussion that will help to remind individual that not everyone are the same. So everyone do have their own truth for their own, and also their own vulnerability that they would like to hide or reveal. So to me, is quite refreshing and quite meaningful.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Eric, as well. I like it when you say values are picked up and not learned. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we can't tell them our values. Yeah, they're caught. Thank you, Eric. Anyone else like to share before I end? All right. Thank you very much for sitting through with me in this session. Appreciate that. Should I hand it back to you, Ewan?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Simon, for sharing with us today the power of vulnerability. For those of you who have some thoughts about the session, please share it with us in our feedback form. I'll paste the link in the chat group. So we have our next session will start at 3 o'clock, the sexual violence panel, which is moderated by Shivli. And yeah, we hope to see you then. Thank you, Dr. Simon.